Well, there you have it. Democrats just caved and bent the knee to Donald Trump and the Republicans.
What's up, guys? Steven here. Today we are talking about the Democratic shutdown that is now thankfully coming to an end. The Democrats are freaking out, libs are tweaking. It's going to be an interesting day. It's pretty hilarious to look at, to be honest. So let's dive in. Bernie Sanders posted what might be the cope of the decade.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote.
Wait, so if 8 votes from Democrats voting with Republicans allowed for the government to be reopened, then wouldn't that mean that Democrats were the ones voting to keep it closed?
What it does, first of all, is it raises healthcare premiums for over 20 million Americans by doubling, and in some cases tripling or quadrupling. People can't afford that.
Wait. How would a continued resolution, as you started the video saying, double or triple the cost of healthcare for 20 million Americans?
Number 2, it paves the way for 15 million people to be thrown off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act.
Wait. How does continuing the same resolution that was previously under the Biden administration kick people off Medicare and Medicaid?
Studies show that will mean that some 50,000 Americans will die every year unnecessarily.
You guys are gonna die now, apparently.
And all of that was done to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%.
Well, how is a continued resolution that was passed under Biden giving $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%?
As everybody knows, just on Tuesday, we had an election all over this country. And what the election showed is that the American people want us to stand up to Trumpism.
No, what they showed is a few blue cities are going to continue to vote blue. The majority of the American people, the popular vote and the Electoral College, voted to elect Trump just over a year ago.
To his war against working class people, to his authoritarianism. That is what the American people wanted.
So Trump is authoritarian when he continues a budget continuance that Biden put forward, but you holding low-income families at hostage until you get what you want isn't authoritarianism.
What?
Is anyone following this logic? Because I'm having a real hard time.
But tonight, that is not what happened. So we've got to go forward, do the best that we can to try to protect working class people, to make sure that the United States not only does not throw people off of health care.
How is a continued budget resolution going to throw people off health care?
But ends the absurdity of being the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. We got a lot of work to do.
Okay, healthcare is guaranteed to all people. There's not a hospital in this country that if you go in dying, they won't take care of you. The difference is the Republicans don't want non-citizens to get government benefited health insurance, meaning they got a little sniffle or they got a scratch on their finger, they go into the doctor and are able to get it paid for. We don't think the American people should pay for that. But life-saving measures have been covered my entire life since long before I was born. There's no doctor out there, there's no paramedic out there that will not follow their oath and take care of somebody in a life-threatening situation. So this 50 million people dying where everybody's just gonna be dropping dead on the street, doomsday propaganda is complete BS. Besides the fact it has nothing to do with what they're voting on.
But to be honest with you, tonight was not a good night. Thank you.
So to clarify for those in the audience that don't follow politics super closely, basically, our government hasn't been able to pass a budget in a while, so they keep doing temporary continuances. The Democrats, after voting several times on this same continuance, decided, hey, We can use this continuance as leverage to get what we want. We are going to threaten a government shutdown, which will mean no SNAP benefits, no military payments, no government worker payments, no federal worker payments, cause chaos, destruction, all sorts of nonsense across America to try and get what they want, which is changes to healthcare to include illegal immigrants so that your Medicaid doesn't go to a poor child, doesn't go to a sickly grandma with no income. It goes to some 20-year-old that just crossed the border and is here selling drugs off the books. That's what they want. None of that is in the continuation bill that they were voting on, both last night or the last 2 times it voted in. And if you don't believe me, if you think I'm being biased, if you think I'm twisting the facts to fit my corrupt agenda, which, just to be honest, guys, I don't have an agenda. I don't care if the Republicans or the Democrats win. I care about the best thing for my family and my neighbors and my friends. But if you think that, let's look at what Democrats called it in their own words.
We need to do this while we have the leverage.
Of course, there will be families that are going to suffer, but it is one of the few leverage times we have.
You reopen the government and we lose our leverage, there has to be an agreement right now. That's what this whole shutdown is about.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. Frankly, this is our only moment of leverage.
The idea that you would give up all of your leverage and then hopefully get some sort of great deal coming down the pike is just a fool's errand.
Why are working families the leverage the Democrats need to get Obamacare fixed?
It's the only lever we have.
Democrats have this one little sliver right now when we've got some leverage here.
Some Republican senators have pushed a bill that would pay government workers.
I think that just gives the president more leverage.
Catherine was basically expressing, in her own words, the notion that our leverage right now are our votes.
Them wanting to solve the problem that we want to solve, but do it in a couple of days or a couple of weeks when we've given up our negotiating leverage.
Without that leverage, the minority party, would be stuck in the mud and not basically have anything to negotiate.
The American people are leverage to the Democrats. Leverage, meaning if you have leverage, you hold an advantage in a situation or the strong position in contrast. This is all a play for the Democrats. They are trying to get what they want passed. They are trying to get what they want pushed through when they didn't win the majority. They lost the executive branch. They lost most of the legislative branch. And instead of taking that loss as a mandate from the American people, they are forcing hardship onto the American people and then blaming the Republicans who won for causing it because you didn't give in to my demands. Imagine if life worked that way. Hey boss, if you don't give me a raise, I'm gonna beat you into a bloody pulp. Oh, we can't give you a raise right now. Well, Your Honor, it's his fault for me beating him because he didn't give me the raise that I wanted. How do we live on the same earth as people like this? It's clear propaganda, right? Y'all understand that, right? There's no one actually buying this, right? There's nobody that actually believes this, right? Extend ACA benefits, fund SNAP, government opens. Trump says no, government closed. It is a Trump shutdown. Any questions? For anyone confused in the back, Democrats didn't shut down the government, Republicans did. This is a Republican shutdown.
Saying to you is it's a Republican shutdown, my friend.
In fact, in one candid moment, President Trump conceded that the shutdown cost him many votes in last night's election across the board.
Well, let's be clear. We're shut down right now because Republicans are refusing to even talk to Democrats about a bipartisan budget bill. As you know,
it's the same funding bill you already voted for. All right, I gotta stop. So yes, they believe it's a Republican shutdown, even though this is what the voting looks like. I certainly see a lot of red on support and a lot of blue on oppose. But once again, if you don't give us what we want, it's your fault. So the fact that some Democrats finally saw a little bit of rationality and said, hey, let's not torture the American people to try and push our political agenda against an administration that vastly won an election against us, because that kind of makes us bigger fascists than we call them. Now the popular thing on the internet is to bash the few Democrats that actually allowed us to get past 60 votes, because most Democrats still didn't. Most Democrats still want the government shutdown. They don't want you to have your food stamps. They don't want you to have air travel. They don't want government workers to be paid. They don't want the military to be paid. They want all of it shut down until they get what they want. Democrats, circulate immediately the names and states of the 10 or 11 Democratic senators who are reportedly about to fold and vote for Trump and Republicans. Name, state, Twitter handle. These are the assholes right here that turn their back on millions of Americans. Vote them out. Millions and millions will lose their health care because these old 8 white people. This isn't just a bad decision. These are really bad people. Learn their names. Can't help but notice the profile image looks like an old white man. Reminder, President Biden never cut SNAP payments, never ended a government shutdown. In fact, he cut child poverty in half. I miss having a real president. Shame on you. 8 Democrat voters betrayed us. Spineless morons do not deserve our votes. It's a whole lot of flags in the bio. Everyone should unfollow these senators that sold out to their constituents. Who's doing it right now? Now, let's be real here. The Democrats that finally bent the knee, as they keep saying, and voted along with the Republicans to continue the same budget continuation that passed during the Biden administration, did a relatively human thing because they realized most of the American people with half a brain cell are realizing they are kind of evil. Great quote from a Democratic whip here. Of course, there will be families that are going to suffer, but this is one of the few leverage times we have. Yeah, I'm not surprised that some of the Democrats finally saw the light and realized using their own constituents as leverage to force the Republicans into something that the American people voted them in power to not do is probably a bad idea when it comes to re-election time. Because let's be honest, that's all these people really care about, with maybe the one exception being John Fetterman. Now, I've never been a big Fetterman fan, but I will say from the beginning, he saw this for what it is: ridiculousness. Using the American people as leverage to get a political point is a bad idea, and he's been extremely vocal and voting with the Republicans the entire time. Posting last night after the vote, after 40 days as a consistent vote against shutting our government down, I voted yes for the 15th time to reopen. I'm sorry to our military, SNAP recipients, government workers, and Capitol Police who haven't been paid in weeks. It should have never come to this. This was my failure. Man, as much as I want to blame Democrats for being crazy, it's nice to see at least one Democrat that seems to have his head on straight. Now, this isn't a glowing endorsement, but not only does he acknowledge that using the American people as leverage is a bad idea, but he takes personal accountability for it. He takes ownership, says it was his failure, even though he voted to keep the government open the whole time. I gotta say, much impressed. Much impressed. As a big fan of Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, I love the fact that not only he can recognize his party was in the wrong, but take personal ownership for his failure to lead his party to the right decision, which was to never shut down the government in the first place. The healthcare subsidies, the healthcare for illegal aliens, and whatever other issues the Democrats want to push through can be debated at other times. They can be put up and voted on correctly. The only reason they have to shut down the government to try and get these pushed is because they know they won't win. And why won't they win? Is it because the Republicans have some unfair advantage? No, it's because the Republicans have a majority, and so they know they'd have to convince or compromise with Republicans in order to get any bill passed, and they don't want to compromise, and they don't want to convince. They can't convince because their ideas make no sense. So instead, they tried to force and ram it down Republicans' throats, even though the reason they're in that position is because of the votes of the American people. If Trump was president and there was a Democratic majority in the House and Senate, they could get those bills through, and then if the president refused to sign them, then they can say it's Trump's fault that we don't have XYZWQRP. But they lost. The people don't want what they're selling, and they're trying to sell it to you anyway. Crazy. I don't know. Crazy guys. Give the people what they voted for, and that's anti-American apparently. So I'm done ranting about this, guys. The internet's going crazy. Check out some of the tweets, memes. They're pretty fun and funny. I'm gonna leave you with the Babylon B one again. Democrats agree to end the shutdown in exchange for 15% off coupons to Cracker Barrel. I'm glad this chapter's coming to an end. I can't wait for the government to get back open and back to work. Even though I tend to be more of a small government person, I think that there are a lot of really important services that people count on need to go back into effect. So let's get back to work. Keep praying, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you on the next one.